Hey guys, in this video, I want to talk about the products and tools you need to detail only the major areas of a vehicle and talk about the business side of why detailing the major areas of the vehicle and shifting your focus is going to increase your profitability. So we're touching on two major things here. Now, before we get into it, as always, I want to remind you guys, go below in the YouTube description box and grab my free guide to starting your auto detailing business for under $500, where I lay out the exact list of tools and products that you need in order to start in this business. I promise you, I spent a ton of time wasting money and wasting my own energy and time on chemicals, products, tools that did not work, and I filled up my garage with stuff that ended up wasting money. So I'm here to shorten your learning curve. Go below, grab that guide, and don't learn from your own mistakes like I did. Now, let's jump in. What you see me doing in this video is the latter half of a full interior detail as well as exterior detail, but for the sake of this video, just the interior, and it's only the carpets and the leather seats. Now, before I get into the tools and products, I want to lay out the basic perspective or kind of mental framework of why I've created a video like this. In the detailing world, one of the biggest issues that guys have is trying to figure out where to put their focus. They deeply struggle with this. I hear this all the time. Luke, I'm spending too much time detailing. I'm not getting through vehicles quick enough. This is one of the major areas, problem areas for beginner detailers as well as sort of intermediate detailers, and something that took me actually many years to really finally figure out how to kind of come out of that. So let me kind of set up the mental framework for this. What ends up happening in the detailing world many times is that we overfocus on areas that shouldn't be overfocused on, and we underfocus on areas that should be focused on. And so I like to talk about the 80-20 rule in this area of detailing. And for those of you who don't know the 80-20 rule, it's basically this simple idea of how can we put in 20% effort and get 80% of results, or in a different context like here, how can we focus 80% of our effort on the 20% of the vehicle that really requires the focus of that 80%. Well, that's why we're talking about what I call the major part of the vehicle. The first thing to set up the mental framework is to understand that the major parts of any vehicle are, number one, the carpets, and number two, the seats. Now, let me explain what I mean by this. Essentially, you can think about it as simple as this. If you were to clean nothing else and detail nothing else but the carpets and the seats, the overwhelming majority of the car and the overwhelming perspective that you would kind of take on is, wow, this car is really clean. Even if you did not detail any of what I call the hard vinyl, rubbers, leathers, and plastics. So that's everything from the air vents, steering wheel, dashboard, door panels, radio console, all of those areas were completely untouched. If you detailed out to a high level of perfection the carpets and the leather seats, or the upholstery in another case, the car would look very, very clean. Now, it's important to understand that there are areas like this in the vehicle where when you over-focus on them, you end up kind of creating an overwhelmingly detailed or clean look in the car in general. So you might have noticed this even in your own detailing world. For example, if you've detailed professionally at any level, or you've detailed a lot of cars at any level, you might have noticed this. You'll get hyper-focused in one tiny little area, and you feel like, man, I'm not getting it clean, I'm not getting it clean, I'm not getting it clean. And it gets you down, it brings your attitude down a little bit. And the reason I can speak to this is because I've done it so many times, and I know how this feels. So you'll over-focus in this one area, and you're like, man, I just can't get this right. So eventually you move on. Then at the end of the detail, you go back and look at your work, and you're like, man, the car looks really, really good. And the overwhelming majority, or your first perspective when you take a holistic view of the car is, oh man, this interior looks really, really good, but for whatever reason, this whole time I've been detailing, I've been kind of down on myself and kind of frustrated, and it's because of a few small areas where I kind of hyper-focused and was like, man, I just can't get this area the way I want it to. But that area, in light of everything else, ends up coming into, again, this holistic view of the car, and it looks very, very good. The reason that's so important to talk about is because that's where we bring in this 80-20 mentality, this 80-20 perspective in dealing with what we call the major areas of the car. If we can list out and sort of organize our business in a way where we focus on areas that end up making the most impact from the way the car looks in the end, rather than on the areas that really get overlooked in light of the wholeness of the car, then we're not going to over focus on the areas that we can't do anything anything about. And in this case, the two major areas that you really need to understand are going to be the most important in really any vehicle, but in this case, because this video I'm focusing on it just in a video context, are the seats and the carpets. And so this is just something to show you guys, as far as a lot of times I'll have customers literally ask me, I don't want to pay this price or this price or this price. Can we just do this, this, and this? And I'm like, hey, let me just deal with the seats and the carpets, because that's what's going to give them the most sort of you might call bias by contrast. It brings the biggest before and after difference, and the customer ends up being really satisfied in the end. That's the perspective shift that's very, very important to have as a detailer. There are more areas than just what we're talking about in this particular video, but this is an extremely important video because it's something that is extremely, extremely practical and necessary for you to implement in your business. Really, really start practicing how you can focus on the areas that bring the biggest before and after difference and end up being accounted for most by you and the customer in light of the holistic view of the interior, exterior, or both. Now, that being said, I want to talk about the products and tools that I'm using in this video just so you guys understand what I'm using, why I'm using them. Really, the main tool that I'm using in this video and in many videos is the steamer. I want to talk about detailing steamers for just a quick second because it's a question I get all the time. Number one, the reason why I'm so avid with a steamer and so kind of bullish on getting a steamer if you don't have one is because number one, and I'll talk about this in a second, they're very affordable, but number two, they're the most versatile, in my opinion, detailing tool that you can have. And so while I use the VX5000, it's about $1,000 steamer. You can find it on Amazon. It's generally not the steamer that I hook up in the YouTube description box below. Generally, I hook up one by a company called McCulloch. It's a $200 steamer, and it's one that most detailers default to. And so even though I don't use it professionally, it's literally less than a quarter of the price of the one I use for those of you on a budget or who just want to buy, kind of some smaller, less expensive items before you go all in, which I totally understand because I did the same thing. For those of you who want to do that, the McCulloch steamer, and of course I'll hook up all this stuff below in the YouTube description box, that will be available for you guys to check out, and it works fantastically because, again, it's the default steamer of many, many, many detailers. In addition to that, you guys saw that I was using my steamer with my chemical. It's actually by Renegade. It's called their Citrus Safe Touch All-Purpose Cleaner, and it's generally the all-purpose cleaner that I'm using nowadays for all-purpose cleaning, no pun intended, but generally for cars that need to be sort of reset, a little bit dirtier. They're a little bit more to handle than just the Meguiar's APC. Meguiar's APC I keep diluted about 10-1. This one I can dilute 10-1, the same ratio, but because it's a stronger cleaner, it can take care of just a little bit more. Now, in addition to that, you guys saw that really those were the only two products and tools that I used mostly for the carpets. Of course, I mopped up with some interior microfibers, but outside of that, that was the majority of what I used. Maybe a little tiny detailing brush, a quick drill brush here and there, but outside of that, it was no big deal. Now, moving on, you guys saw that I ended up using my extractor to pull the water out of the floor mats. Even though I'm detailing the leather seats, you can go back and check that out. The extractor is something that I absolutely consider more of a luxury. Now, when you're soaking floor mats like I did in this video, of course, it makes logical sense to be able to suck that water out. But in many ways, if you're on a budget, once again, using just a simple nylon brush, pushing the water out, pushing the fibers in the same direction, and then let those mats sit and dry in the sun, and the sun will take care of the rest of that. Now, moving on to the leather seats, this is where things get probably a little bit more important as far as the things you use, just because leather can be a little bit more fragile. You have to introduce a little bit more caution. And in this video, I'm using a little nylon leather scrub brush. This is not something that I've always pulled out in my videos, but what you see me using right now in the video, it's basically got these tiny little feelers, tiny little like velvet legs on the underside of it. And for whatever reason, this ends up being a really great tool when you're cleaning leather seats. I don't know why. Generally, I'm reaching for like my non-abrasive scrub pad, my detailing brushes, and of course, I have both of those in this video. But this particular brush that is dedicated to clean leather is actually extremely effective. Now, I'm simply mopping up with my interior microfiber towels, but the chemical that I'm using is once again from Renegade's Detailer series. It's called their LVP Cleaner. And this has really become my go-to leather cleaner because, and a lot of people, they always get skeptical. They're like, you work with Renegade. This is sponsored. I can't listen to anything you say. And while, yes, of course I work with Renegade. I talk about their products all the time. I've actually been using their products for the last 2.5 years. And this particular product, the reason why I use it all the time is because I don't have to worry about spraying it directly onto the leather seat. So you'll see in this video, I'm spraying the chemical directly onto the leather. Well, one of the reasons why detailers don't like to do that is because at times, particularly with relatively dirty leather, older leather, and leather that hasn't necessarily been cleaned on a regular basis, when you spray some sort of alkaline cleaner, which leather cleaners are, onto the leather itself, maybe Meguiar's APC, maybe some sort of diluted form of a degreaser, and then that cleaner kind of drips down, what happens is those concentrated doses in that drip, that chemical drip, ends up cleaning at a bit higher degree than you would actually want it to, whatever part of the leather it's on. So when you wipe the cleaner off, you can actually see it almost looks like a stain that was left from the cleaner where it dripped. You can watch the trace drip go all the way down the seat. Well, the reason that doesn't happen with this particular product is because this is a particularly dedicated leather cleaner, and while you guys know I don't always use dedicated products for specific areas, the reason why I'm using it here is once again because it's got that perfect combo between like strong enough to clean where I don't have to go 3-4 passes, but and yet like safe enough where I can spray it directly onto the seat and I don't worry about it. Now what you see me using here is just a tiny little dental kit. It comes with a little toothpick sort of thing that they scrape the plaque off your teeth when you're at the dentist office getting your teeth cleaned twice a year, as you should be. And that's what I use to kind of poke inside of the perforated holes inside the leather seat in case there's anything in there that I need to sort of pull out or poke down, or sometimes there's tiny little dust particles that I'll just kind of poke out of the way because those tiny dust particles in light of the seat that just got cleaned can sometimes look a little obvious, and the contrast is just a little not visually appealing, if you know what I mean. Outside of that, those are really the only major tools I'm using in this video to get the major areas of the carpet and the leather clean. And the reason why I wanted to show you how simplistic this is just to encourage you guys again why you don't need the nicest tools or the nicest products in order to get these things done in a way that not only creates a win-win for your pocketbook and your own attitude, but also, of course, for your customer and what they're after. You can address the majority areas of the car where the after looks incredible, and you're addressing all the major areas that the customer deeply cares about with very simplistic tools, very simplistic products, not a ton of money, all of that sort of stuff. Now, before we go, guys, make sure you go down in the YouTube description box and grab that free guide to starting your auto detailing business for under $500, where I lay out every single product and tool that you need just as a foundation to make sure that you can succeed from day one in this business. And that way you don't have to waste your time, money, and energy going out trying to figure out what you need. Just let me give it to you and shorten the learning curve for you. Of course, every product and tool in this video is going to be, like I said, down there with the guide in the YouTube description box if you want to check those out. And as always, guys, if you like the video content here, business side, product side, and you love everything auto detailing, and or you're trying to get into the business or just trying to revamp your own business, make sure you hit the red subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you get notified when I publish future videos. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, keep working hard, and I will see you guys in the next video.